All right, hello everybody. This is the second video with regard to fabricating the rear engine mounts. It'll be a short video, but for the sake of completeness, I just wanted to walk everybody through what we created. As we talked about in the last video, these are the stock engine mounts and they are beautifully made. They don't really work for basically for my use case, for a couple reasons. I needed to shift the engine back 1.5 inches and also mount the engine a little higher in the frame just to make sure I pass safety inspection in New Jersey. So as described, I came up with the design on paper. I then fabricated this out of plywood. I sent a photo of this over to the fabricator to see if he was good to make this product, and he said yes, he could make it. So I just received the rear engine brackets back from the fabricator, and I do want to give a shout out to Dominic Buffalino. Dominic owns Buffalino Fabricators in Sayreville, New Jersey, and he is an absolute pleasure to work with. He did all the welding on the front engine mount and fabricated these parts and welded them up. So, essentially they do what we need them to do, which is, when they mount on the frame, they're going to be, the engine's going to be 1.5 inches, towards the rear of the car, giving me the space I need for that front air intake and the front accessories. So great job. I specifically asked him not to drill the holes because I want to mount them on the chassis, drill the holes. I also asked him to make it a little oversized, so I'll trim it up nice and clean, and then I'll send them to the platers, and they're going to look great and they're going to be very functional. This 45-degree angle fits perfect and sort of avoids that TIG welding ridge that, if I made it a longer plate, it would have interfered with that. So, they're going to look great, they're going to fit great, and then we are going to move on. So I'll transition over to the engine, and once they're finished, you'll see how they look installed. Okay, here's a little bit of a work in process. I've drilled the holes in the face of the rear engine brackets. I'll zoom in here a little bit. These things fit great. Everything is like plus or minus, say 1 millimeter, which is totally acceptable. There's a little give in the brackets, so when I tighten them up, it'll fit great. But before I got the courage enough to drill those holes in the brackets, the metal's not inexpensive, the fabrication time is not inexpensive, so you want to just make it right. I took multiple measurements. I basically put an electronic level on the top of the supercharger cover to make sure the engine's level left to right. I put a level on the balancer on the crankshaft to make sure the engine's vertically correct. I measured between the front cross member over here and the very edge of the front engine mount clamp multiple times to make sure it's equidistant. Then I basically measured the difference between this point and the very top of the frame rail on both sides. And then I measured the flat surface from here and the distance to the stanchion. And everything, like I said, is really plus or minus 1 millimeter. It really can't get any better than that. So I'm going to put some blue dye on the back of those brackets and scribe the side holes, and I'm going to drill them up, and then I'll show you the finished product. And that'll be the next segue. Okay, so here are the rear engine brackets installed. I'll just sort of zoom in a little bit. Like I mentioned, I'm going to have them nickel plated, so right now I've got some of that blue dye to locate where I should drill the holes, but they're all tightened down, and let me tell you, I'll zoom into that ridge, the TIG ridge that I pointed out in an earlier video. those dual 45-degree angles, you know, cut right in front of it. So, you know, this just couldn't have come out any better. I mean, pretty cool when you see it all together, and it sort of looks the way you envision it to look. You know, when you buy a car, you never really focus on the engine mounts, but when you're building a car, you sort of obsess over every part, and you want it to look right and fit right. And in this case, I would say it's mission accomplished. We'll take a look over at the top. And I mean, they just fit beautifully. You know, Dominic Buffalino did a great job, so one more shout out to him. I'll call it a wrap on the engine mounts. The next step is really to pull the engine and build that alternator mount, and then I'll mount all the front accessories, and I'll just leave the engine on the side until later in the build, and I'll get working on some of the standard, you know, the standard components. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care.